Hi there, it's Strutter. Today's April 22nd, 2020, and it's the 38th day of my lockdown diary. I'm not going to bring any numbers or charts today. I just want to talk about one particular link, and I'll put that down below. But overall, in regards to numbers, the deaths are slowing. I've been reporting on that for over a week now, and it is becoming more official now. The death rate is slowing. There is going to be not 1 million people dead at the end of this month, as was previously likely if we were on that trajectory. So the flattening of the curve, or the preventing of the healthcare system from being decimated by this outbreak, has been accomplished. So we do need to start reopening, and I talked about that yesterday. And now we're seeing about 40% of reported deaths and cases are in the USA now. Does that make sense? The USA only has 4% of the world population. So you're 10 times more likely to be infected and to die of this if you're an American than any other nationality. I think that is bias. I think that is the Americans are over-reporting their numbers. And I've been talking about that for a while too, and I think that's becoming more clear as they are even admitting that they are reporting anything that could be the virus. Any deaths where the patient had this virus, but also some other cause of death, it will be reported that the virus killed them in the United States. So those numbers are expected to be high, and that is what we're seeing. 40% of all reported deaths and cases are in the US. Okay. Anyway, the main story here is that more antibody testing is finally being done, not just the tests themselves, which are small little plastic kits I've talked about before, little handheld kits like a diabetes test. You just poke your finger, put a sample of the blood on there, and it will tell you the answer. There's nothing invasive. You don't even have to go into your doctor. You can do this at home yourself. And these tests are now being used in labs, and a lab did a test on 900 people in California, and it showed that many more people have been infected with coronavirus than previously shown. And this is to be expected because they've been withholding testing from the public. You can't get tested for the most part. So these antibody testings, I've been saying for a while, we need antibody testing. The free market created these antibody tests, and the government has been holding it back. So now, thankfully, at least in some areas, we are getting some testing done. And a lab, like I said, tested 900 people. And they found that there's a lot more people that have had it than we thought. So the overall mortality rate will actually end up being more like a very bad flu, it looks like. A very bad flu. Maybe the worst flu kind of thing. And as for its virality, it's how fast it spreads, it's how contagious it is more contagious than the flu. So it is more contagious than the flu, and it is as deadly as a very bad flu or the worst flu. So overall, the threat level of this virus appears to be moderate. And that's something that I've been saying from the beginning too. A lot of people have misestimated the threat level. A lot of people said there was no threat level. It didn't even exist, a lot of people said, or still say. And then there's the other people that say the threat level is so high they're hiding under their beds right now, crying, waiting for the government to save them. So the reality is somewhere in the middle. The reality is that it's a moderate threat. It is going to infect almost everybody on the planet. And that's just the unfortunate truth. A lot of viruses do. We are infected, a lot of us are infected with, say, Epstein-Barr virus. And that has been the case. We've known that for many years. We all have that living in us. Many other viruses live in almost all humans. And, they don't always cause a problem. That's the other part of it. But this virus is causing a major problem in people right now as it spreads. And these are large tests being done, 900 people. We will get more testing done, of course, but that's a large test. And some more information from that, 5.6% it said of people have been infected overall. And of overall people, 4.1% of them have the antibodies. And that's what you want. You want those antibodies. That means you don't need a vaccine. You're safe. You have those antibodies. So almost everybody who's been infected is getting the antibodies, and that's a good sign too. So if you get infected and you get recovered, it seems that you most likely have antibodies and therefore most likely are immune. The USA is still saying technically possible to have antibodies and not be immune. And they say that more research is needed, but as I pointed out in day 35, South Korea and China's researchers have already said that it appears impossible to be reinfected after recovering and creating antibodies, and that is what we expected to. So that is good. And the US is dragging their feet before admitting that, but it looks like we are going to be immune once you have had it and gotten better. That's not for sure yet, but that looks like what's happening, and that is good news. So many people were asymptomatic or thought they just had a mild flu or something, right? They didn't have many symptoms, and that is why we thought the death rate was much higher than it is. And as these antibody tests are showing now, the free market is making it available, and the government is having trouble holding this back. Now eventually it's becoming known now that a lot more people have been infected, and many of them didn't really even get that sick from it. They just passed it on. They just had it and passed it on. And now they have antibodies most likely. And so there is a lot more herd immunity probably than we know. There's at least 4%, and that's a good thing, and that's rising all the time, that number. Of course, as people recover, that number is going up. There's no vaccines available, so that number is all natural immunity, that 4%, 4.1%. So that's good news, and I hope that number just keeps on going up. And each time they test a population, we see that that number has gone up. And more people have had the virus and recovered and not had any permanent damage or any real symptoms of any kind. So that is really good. And some more information from that test, 6% of men have been infected in that region. I think it was California that they took those 900 people from. 6% of men and 2% of women. So it is definitely infecting men a lot more than women. And the most likely age range to be infected will surprise you. It's not seniors, it's actually just adults, 35 to 54. Youth were a little bit less, and seniors were a little bit less. It was the adults, the 35 to 54 range. That's my range. That is the most likely age range to have the infection. Not necessarily to die from it. Those who die from it tend to be older people, but it's now becoming known that it is the adults that are catching and passing this illness the most. Not necessarily the adults that are dying, it's the seniors that are dying. So that's interesting. I thought I would bring that study. I'll post that link down below. I didn't want to go too much into other stuff today, other than, we need more of those antibody tests, and we need less restrictions on society and on the free market, and we need to get reopened. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon, and please stay well.